Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 21st edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Burton, and I'll be taking you guys through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. So, a couple pieces of news to talk about today, but first I got to mention two things here. At 11 a.m., so in about 45 minutes from now, I'll be doing the UFC Raleigh and Bellator 239 preview with Cole Sheldon, so looking forward to doing that with him. And also, myself and Nick Kalikas did a special podcast last night where Nick broke his odds for UFC 248, including Yoel Romero versus Israel Adesanya and Willie Zhang versus Joanna Jacek. Nick was on location in Vegas. He actually had went to Westgate Sportsbook in Vegas and placed a bet on Joanna due to line value. And he explains why he made the bet in the podcast, and he even says he doesn't necessarily mean he's going to take Joanna at the end, but he just couldn't pass up on plus 140. So definitely go and check out the podcast from yesterday. Good stuff from Nick. I mean, Nick's an experienced better. You know, the guy's been doing it forever. He sets lines. So he's got a lot of insight into it, and definitely check it out. And like I said on the podcast yesterday with Nick, we're going to plan on doing that like once a month together, where I bring Nick on the show and he gives me some real like insider knowledge here. And also he check out his Instagram because he's been posting his videos there. It's pretty cool. All right, let's get to today's news. A couple of things. Let's start with Jorge Masvidal. So he was on Ariel's show yesterday, talked about a lot of stuff, and one of the things he said was he doesn't want to wait for Conor McGregor. In his mind, he doesn't believe McGregor actually wants to fight him, which is interesting because we all assume that's the fight that's going to happen next. Even though Dana White said that he believes it's going to be McGregor versus Nurmagomedov, Masvidal is the fight that a lot of people want to see, including myself, because I think that is the most intriguing fight out there. His manager, obviously, Abe Kawa, said the other day that he'd like to see McGregor fight Masvidal for interim belt if Usman's injured, which it appears that he is going to go for a little while. But, in my opinion, with Usman just defending that belt against Colby Covington last month, you can't introduce an interim belt. That doesn't make sense. But Masvidal has that BMF title, right? So, to me, McGregor versus Masvidal for a BMF belt is a fun fight for the fans, and I'd like to see it. So, I don't know why Dana's so hung up on this Khabib rematch, but it seems like that could be the next fight. If that's the case, Masvidal said he doesn't want to wait for McGregor. So that's disappointing. I mean, it could be a ploy, it could be negotiation, but it sure doesn't sound like he wants to wait around. He wants to fight soon. He just fought Nate Diaz in November, but it's already January, and Masvidal has a lot of momentum right now. I don't think he wants to sit around and wait for a while. So he says if McGregor's not interested, he wants to fight Usman for the welterweight title, which is another great fight. And it's a fight that makes sense because Masvidal has earned that title shot at 170. But if Usman's out for a minute, then what? So he's got two options here, McGregor or Usman. They're great options for Masvidal. He might have to wait a little bit longer than he wants to, though. I think he wants to fight in April or May. It seems like he's probably going to have to wait till at least July. I would assume in that card in Vegas in July. Hopefully not longer than that. I think that would be a little bit too long. But I think Masvidal versus McGregor or Usman on that card in July makes sense. It just depends on timing, injuries, and what the UFC does with McGregor and Khabib. And if Khabib beats Tony Ferguson, there's so many ifs. A lot of ifs going on here. So right now, Masvidal says he's not going to wait for McGregor. It is the fight he wants, but he's not going to wait around. And McGregor says he doesn't want to wait around either for Khabib. He wants to fight soon too. So it's just crazy because there's so many moving parts right now. But we'll see what happens. If I had it my way, we'd see Masvidal versus McGregor. Usman, if he's hurt, he can just wait for a while and then fight the winner of that. And then Khabib, Tony, the winner fights Justin Gaethje. To me, that's the solution for these problems. But we'll see what the UFC ends up doing. Got a lot of time. The year just started. It's only January. Feels like so much has happened already with that one card. But, we'll see what happens here with these guys. Speaking about McGregor, last night he went on his Twitter and he sent Donald Trump a message of praise, which, has definitely stirred up some headlines. I don't think a lot of people like Donald Trump, and they didn't take too kindly to McGregor's comments. It is what it is. I don't closely follow U.S. politics by any means. Obviously, I know who Trump is, and I know, some of the stuff he's done, and I know he's not the most well-liked guy. So McGregor going out there and talking to Trump is kind of him trolling him. But, Trump has a big relationship with the UFC, Dana White, and he was a big part of the UFC's early days in getting the sport started. So, it's crazy how the guy who's the president of the U.S. right now played such a pivotal part in MMA history. And even to this day, you got superstar fighters like McGregor tweeting him, saying you're doing a great job, you're the GOAT. It's kind of funny, actually. But, it definitely stirred up some comments. He posted it really late last night, Don't know if he had some proper 12 in the middle of the night because he posted a bunch of stuff McGregor did, but he's always entertaining. So definitely a must follow on Twitter. I just mentioned Justin Gaethje a few minutes ago. So speaking of him, Dana White says he's going to meet with Justin Gaethje and talk about what's next for him. For me, he should get the next title shot. I mean, coming off the 3 straight wins, coming off a nice win his last fight. Cerrone, McGregor just beat, but Gaethje did it first. We'll see what happens. I mean, Gaethje obviously wants a title shot against Khabib or Ferguson. Looks like Dana White wants Conor to fight the winner of that. So I don't know what's going to happen with Gaethje. He might have to take another fight in the meantime. Who would that be? I mean, there's the Poirier rematch out there. He obviously lost to Poirier 2 years ago. There's also Nate Diaz. That would be a fun fight. Justin Gaethje versus Nate Diaz. Now that I think about it, that'd be a fun fight. So those are possible matchups. And I should even mention that the odds came out yesterday for Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor. Michael Bisping believes that Nate Diaz is going to get the fight with Conor McGregor. That's always a possibility too, guys. Like Nate Diaz is kind of the wild card here because that trilogy fight is always there, and that's a big fight. They're 1-1, obviously, so that's always going to be a big fight. But if McGregor fights Masvidal or Usman or Khabib, then you got Gaethje, and he could fight Nate Diaz. So it really, again, just depends on what's going to happen at UFC 249 with Khabib and Ferguson, and with Usman's injury. And it just there's so many ifs. There's so many moving parts. It's just very hard to say right now with certainty, like this guy's going to fight this guy and this guy's going to fight this guy. There's a lot of fights that make sense right now, but only a couple of them are actually going to get made. Also on that card, UFC 246, Maycee Barber apparently suffered a torn ACL, so she's going to be out for a while. That's usually like a year, 9 months to 12 months. She's going to be out for a while, guys, which is obviously disappointing for her. She's only 21, though, so tons of time to bounce back from this, get better, heal up. But, this is why I wanted the towel to be thrown in because, she could have done even more damage with that last round that she had to fight, or she really didn't need to fight. She's tough, and obviously her team thought that she had a chance to win, but, you live to fight another day. And the biggest problem with MMA and a lot of times is just corners and fighters and their teams just not realizing that when they're out of the fight, they really don't need to keep going on. So in my opinion, this fight should have been stopped. I think a lot of people agree with you on that one. She was getting her ass kicked, and the torn ACL didn't help either. So, hopefully she heals up and stuff. I know a lot of people don't really like Maycee Barber right now. And honestly, like I can see why, because, her taking the mic from Roxanne after she lost was not that wasn't a good look. And all the trash she talked and then gets destroyed, like that wasn't a good look either. So I still think she's a good fighter. I think she'll bounce back from this, but she's going to be out for probably the rest of the year. And that's obviously not good. And she won't be breaking that record by John Jones to become the youngest champion in UFC history. But honestly, did anyone think she was actually going to do it and actually going to go out there and beat Valentina? I don't think so. Kevin Lee's brother, Keith Lee, is signed with Bellator, so that's a pretty good signing here. Keith Lee is an interesting prospect. Obviously doesn't have the pedigree that Kevin does. Kevin Lee was a really high-level prospect when he signed with the UFC a few years ago. I think it was 2014 where Kevin Lee signed with the UFC. Keith Lee is only 5-3, so not a great record, but he is coming off 2 straight wins, so that's good. And he does have a decent amount of experience. He fought in TKO in Canada here a couple times, and he also fought for Brave CF. The one thing that stands out to me is his 3 losses were by decision, so he hasn't been finished yet, and 4 of his 5 wins are by stoppage. So that's interesting. And he's going to be taking on Sean Bunch here at Bellator 239. Sean Bunch, an older fighter, 36 years old. At one point was a really good prospect himself, but it's kind of an average fighter. But he does have some good wins. Like Joe Warren was a good win. Dominic Mazzata is a decent win. So he's not a bad fighter. It's a good test, I think, for Keith Lee. He probably does end up winning Keith Lee, but Sean Bunch is a good test, I think, for his debut. So interesting fight. That's Bellator 239. That's in February in Thackerville, Oklahoma. So they're just throwing this guy in the middle of nowhere. And actually, just looking at that card, they announced a bunch of fights for that. The main event is Ed Ruth versus Yaroslav Amosov, which could very well be a possible. I don't know if they win or get a title shot, but they'd be right up there in the mix for the title shot against Douglas Lima. And then also you have Miles Jury against Brandon Gertz. And they announced a couple other fights on there, like Javi Alias fighting Valentin Moldavsky. Carlo Perisoli, who used to be in the UFC, he's going to fight in that card as well, and a couple other guys. So they definitely signed a few guys for that card, and it should be interesting. And fight announcement here for the UFC, just one today. Tristan Connelly will be taking on Alex De Silva at UFC Fight Night 172, and that doesn't have a date or location yet. It's just in April, just according to Marcel Dorf's Instagram, saw it there. So Tristan Connelly is coming off that massive win over Michel Pereira at UFC Vancouver. He's won 5 straight fights. He looked amazing in that fight. He won a double bonus, one fight of the night, won both parts of the fight of the night because Pereira had missed weight. But yeah, he looked good in that fight, guys. He is 34 though, so he's an older guy. I mean, he's not young by any means, but he did look great in that fight. I'm just surprised they gave him this guy Alex Silva because, like, really, this guy is kind of a nobody. I mean, he has had a few fights in the UFC. His record is solid, 21-2. He's 23 years old, so a very young guy. But he's just 1-1 in the UFC. He lost to Alexander Yakovlev and then beat Rodrigo Vargas. The only thing I can think is this going to be a fight night card in Canada? And that's why they want Tristan Connelly to get an opponent that he can beat. That's the only thing I can think of right now. I just don't really understand the matchmaking. I thought they would give Tristan Connelly someone with kind of like I wouldn't say a name by any means, but someone who's notable. Alex Silva is kind of like I said, kind of a nobody. Only hardcore fans really know who this guy is. He fought in the undercard of 2 European cards, or 1 European card and 1 card in Argentina. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a weird fight. Got to favor Connelly, obviously, but the fact that he's 11 years older kind of scares me. All right, got a question here, Kevin Scott, man. Always appreciate your questions, buddy. If Conor were to rematch Habib and win, what are the chances he would give Habib a third fight? 0% chance. There's no way Habib should take that fight without a rematch clause in his contract. Yeah, absolutely. I would assume he wants that. And there was a report yesterday that Habib's team wants at least $10 million for that fight. So there's going to be demands made, and for sure he deserves to have that rematch clause. People will favor Habib after the way that first fight went, but Conor has the power that he can always knock someone out. So you're right, Kevin. They got to be careful. They got to put that into paper, but I would assume that would be part of the deal and the money as well. So no worries there. And I should mention that there was some report of the numbers for UFC 246 pay-per-view, and I saw from O'Brien talking about this, and basically, like, he doesn't believe that that Donald Cerrone's going to be paid a lot of money for the pay-per-view buys. Like, if you look at Donald's salary, I think it was $200K to show, $200K to win, so it wasn't great. We'll see what happens. But yeah, as far as the report goes, I'm just checking it out right now. There's a report saying that this is from Wrestling Observer Radio. Dave Meltzer said metrics were indicating UFC 246 to the equivalent of what 2 million buys would have been under the old pre-UFC Plus system, or pre-ESPN Plus system, excuse me. That's good, obviously. That's huge. I don't know if that's the biggest in MMA history, but it's definitely big. The biggest I still think is Habib and Conor, but this would definitely be up there. I mean, if you break 2 million pay-per-view, that's huge. And you'd have to assume that, like, if Dana White says the Habib rematch would be even bigger. So just wanted to point that out. I did see that this morning, and that's big numbers. So anyways, I think that's going to be it for this show. I'll be back at 11 a.m., so 40 minutes with Cole breaking down UFC Raleigh. In the meantime, check me out on Twitter at Adam Martin, and the podcast is always available at MMAOddsbreaker.com. I'm also available at bjpen.com, MMARaise.net. Guys, have a great day, and I'll be back in 45 minutes to break down UFC Raleigh and Bellator 239. See ya. Bye.